Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to college football. It is week 8 of the college football season. Therefore, week 8, logically, it follows of the Carla and Crappy show. And also logically, I'm Crappy, and right down there is Carla. Hi, Carla.
Hey, how are you?
I am. Last week, I was joking about wanting, looking forward to the chilly weather, and I had the fuzzy hat on and stuff, and pretending it was so cold. And then we went away for the weekend, and we came back, and our furnace was dead. So now. No, I'm actually I'm not actually that cold. It's not that bad. It's still, it's still 50 degrees outside, and it'll get down to the upper 30s tonight. But it's not that big a deal. But just the irony here is like, okay, you want football weather? Here we go. Here's some football weather inside your house.
That's fun. I'm so sorry.
I got the weather I wanted.
You did,
inside and out, and we're gonna take care of the furnace thing. So it's something that needed to be done anyway. I found out our furnace was installed in 1985, which was the year I graduated from high school, which was 3 decades plus.
Yeah,
a long time ago. So we were due. How's the weather down there?
Today was actually quite nice. It was about 68 and sunny, which is perfect fall weather. The last 2 days it's been really rainy, and so it's had a bit of chill in the air that kind of goes right through you, which hasn't been that much fun. And after sitting out in Vanderbilt Stadium on Saturday at the Florida Vandy game, it was downright cold in that stadium. It was like 52, cloudy, and the wind was blowing, and we never got the sun, and so it was downright chilly. I had several layers on, and my hands were still cold.
And there were coaches yelling at each other and near riots in the field. And what happened with that?
So that's really funny because all that happened while I was, no joke, in the nacho line. I missed the whole thing.
Well, the priorities are, that's an important thing.
We were trying to beat the halftime rush to go get food because I wasn't in a press box. I was actually in the stands with, like normal people. And we were like, let's beat the food line. And so we watched the last Florida drive, and then we're like, let's go get in line. And so we went and got in line. And then all of a sudden we hear all this stuff happening in the stadium. We have no idea what's going on. And Vanderbilt Stadium is quite old. So it's not wired that well. So we didn't have a TV to be able to look over and see what was going on. And so I started scrolling through my Twitter feed while we were standing in line for food and seeing what was going on. And I actually tweeted at one point, it sounds like we picked the worst time ever to go get nachos. But
it always works that way.
It does, and when we ended up, we made it back just in time. It was a long line. We made it back just in time to start the third quarter. So, So we missed all of the frivolity, but we saw a good part of the action on the field. So
okay. How were the nachos? Were they good?
Nachos were good. Yes, yes, and much appreciated. The most popular guy in the stadium was the guy selling hot chocolate. So
I understand how that goes. I'm actually going to Purdue to see Ohio State this weekend. So and it's supposed to be chilly. In the 30s probably. It was a surprise night game. And it's going to be in the 30s by the time we are done. So I am set. I am looking forward. The chilly stuff inside the house is sort of prep for the the Midwestern outdoor football experience.
This is your training week.
Yes, I think so.
Absolutely.
My one thing is going to be sort of talking about that and college football eggs. But as we do, I'm going to give you your first crack at your one thing from college football in the last week.
So
besides nachos.
Besides nachos. So the one thing is the fact that the only thing I got right on the show last week was the fact that I called out those 3 games at the end of the show and said, don't miss on any of these games.
We're totally right about that.
And I was right about all 3 of them.
Yes.
Unfortunately, that's the only thing I got right this week, much to the chagrin of my Nittany Lions. But what a crazy week in college football. But true to form, since I actually saw Florida in person, I thought I would offer a very brief Florida analysis since I've seen this team in person now. Felipe Franks, not impressed. His accuracy is questionable. At best, he had some wide open receivers multiple times during that game that he just airmailed. And it was consistently that way. In fact, it was funny. We were at the game because my husband went to Florida, and we were both college football writers at one point.
Yeah.
And he actually he texted his brother, who also went to Florida, and saying Felipe Franks is not a good quarterback. And I don't know if I would go that far, but there were some questionable decisions. The line play was not consistent across the board. At the start the game, Florida drove right down the field. Line play looked great. Franks had time. Run game looked great. Second and third drives of the game, a hot mess on the line. So it's just kind of like everything that we've thought about the Florida offense, about not being consistent, whether or not it really exists. I think we're seeing it accurately on TV. Seeing it in person did not change my opinion.
I know nothing about Vanderbilt's front seven, but I assume they are not quite at like a stereotypical SEC level.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. That's accurate. I mean, they played really, really well, and Florida gave them the opportunity because Vanderbilt gave Florida a dose of their own medicine early in the first half. I mean, they jumped out to that 21-3 lead because Florida turned the ball over twice. And Florida drove right down the field and then threw a pick. And again, that goes back to Frank's questionable decision making. I mean, it really. I mean, he just really made some really strange decisions, and he fumbled. It was his fumble that gave Vandy the ball back to get them ahead by 2 touchdowns at that point and go 21-3. The one thing I learned about Vandy can't execute a scoop and score to save its life. There were 2 times that the ball was on the ground and all they had to do is pick it up and it would have been a touchdown. And literally it was kicked and it was bobbled and it was down the field and people were falling on it. It kept rolling. It was like comic relief kind of thing. Yes. Vandy, just fall on the football. Stop trying. You have possession. Just fall on the damn ball.
Listen to Coach Fox, guys.
It's just
that's all you got to do.
Stop trying to scoop and score if you can't do it. Just fall on the ball and take it. They almost lost one of them because the ball was rolling towards the sideline, and they got real lucky on the bounce. So it was a good game. It was an exciting game. It was a really sloppy game on every side of the ball. Florida escaped. They were clearly the better team. I don't know how Franks is going to do. Heading down the stretch. Cocktail party is going to be real interesting next week.
We might have to talk about that one.
Yeah, I think we might have to talk about that one after Georgia got crushed. And Jake Fromm did not look good in that game at all. Because I saw a good chunk of that game because we came back from Florida Vandy and I immediately sat down, turned on every TV in the house.
Nice.
It was crazy. But yeah, so Fromm didn't look good. I'm not impressed with Franks. The line play is not consistent. That's going to be a real interesting game in 2 weeks. But yeah, so that's my breakdown of Florida.
Okay. I'm gonna make sure that my nephew gets to make sure that he listens to this because he's as I think I've mentioned before, he's a freshman at Florida. Lives in a dorm where he can literally see the swamp from his dorm room. So he's been very excited about that. Stoked to be there.
I learned the gator chomp.
How hard is that? I mean, it's
band cues. I learned the band cues.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's fine. Okay, that's better. But I'll make sure Brooks sees this. Hi, Brooks. Go
hi, Brooks. I don't know you, but hi.
You guys are gonna have next weekend's gonna be interesting. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that. My one thing, briefly, because I didn't actually see virtually any college football last weekend because it was my birthday weekend. We were hiking around the Hocking Hills in southeastern Ohio. I have, because I am obsessive like this, I tape all the Ohio State stuff and I watched bits and pieces of the game against Minnesota. It was as sloppy as I was led to believe from listening to the radio when we were in the car and doing stuff between different areas of Hocking Hills State Park. And my one thing is not an analysis of Ohio State, Minnesota. My one thing is it's just it's sort of a snapshot because we're at the point of the season where college football angst really starts to build for me. Because if you look at this, Purdue bye week, Nebraska at home. And you'd think, if you're thinking of college football tradition and how everything goes, it's like, oh, it's Ohio State, Nebraska. It's going to be awesome. No, it's not. It's not going to be awesome. And then there's, I think Illinois, and then the schools up north in back-to-back weeks should be favored, will be favored for each of those games until we have to go to East Lansing. And yet I still, this game I think about 2001, and Ohio State had a lead going into the fourth quarter, and little tiny quarterback that they had there, Drew Brees, maybe Drew, something like that. Does that name ring a bell? He brought Purdue back in Ross-Ade Stadium for the win in that game. I remember the 2002 game, the Holy Buckeye thing, which and if you don't remember that game, that was even after the Michael Jenkins touchdown, Ohio State could have lost that game. That's how tight that was. There was a game, I believe Braxton Miller was quarterback. Ohio State had no business losing to Purdue on the road, and they did. There's just stuff. Purdue even in Columbus, when Kenny Guyton was playing quarterback, Kenny Guyton had to come in the game late, if I remember this correctly, for Braxton Miller, and win in overtime. There's just something about this Purdue team that it's like I should be completely relaxed going to this game. Should be able to have a great time in West Lafayette, and it's like, and that's why it's fun. That's
Yep.
you get to this point in the season, and I have kind of a side. I look sort of sideways at Jim Tressel stuff, but he always said November is when the real stuff happens, and we're almost there. So it is agonizing, and the best kind of fun. All at the same time. And I am really, really looking forward to this road trip with one of our regular listeners, Patrick. Hi, Patrick. And for the rest of the season, we'll see how it goes.
Speaking of speaking of frustrating?
Yeah.
Damn it, Pitt, so close.
I know. I just kind of watching scores when I had a chance, and
I watched the second. That was one of the screens I had. I was watching that game, and man, it was sitting right there for them, and it just didn't. That was a game, like we said, Pitt had no business being in, and they did what they always do and played way over their heads. But Notre Dame was clearly the better team, and pulled out that win. But damn it, okay, I'm over. It was really close. What I get for being a Pitt fan. Pitt loses, Penn State loses. God, it was a terrible week. Terrible week.
It wasn't. It was a fun weekend overall.
It was.
Okay. Before we get started with our picks, AJ has to work through some heartburn, and this might help. I'm holding up a bottle of store brand Tums. AJ, that might give you a head. He's got an upset tummy over the quality of his late night slate, with one pretty prominent exception, and over a particular conference down south. So we'll let AJ explain that. Go.
Hi, it's your old buddy AJ coming to you live from a car in an undisclosed location. Felt like calling it, or checking in, really, to see how everything's going. It's your Pac-12 After Dark report. Funny enough, I'm not going to talk about a Pac-12 After Dark game because the actual Pac-12 After Dark games are real bad. Just maybe not even worth watching. However, we do have a semi one on Thursday. That's Stanford, Arizona State, 9 p.m. Thursday. Arizona State and Stanford appear to be fine, I guess. This is a 5-point game. Arizona State is actually favored in this game. The fighting Herms are here and they're ready to go. That game is in Tucson, so this has the potential to be good. Manny Wilkins has been real fun to watch this year. KJ Costello I said Arizona State was favored by 5. They're not. Stanford's favored by 2.5. KJ Costello is really great. Bryce Love has been hampered with injuries all year, so they've had to lean on Costello a lot this year. Stanford's actually done really well this year, except for those 2 times they got destroyed. But this could be a really fun game to watch. It's a Thursday game. There ain't nothing else going on. So check in on that game. But if we move to Saturday, this is not a Pac-12 game. This is a SEC game. I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm going to talk about an SEC. I can't get it out. I'm going to talk about an American Conference game. All right, I got that one out. I want to talk about an AAC game. They're playing a team from the Midwest that for some reason joined a conference based in the southern and eastern part of the United States. It's a problem I have. It's a reflex. I say the three letters in a row, and there it goes. So, Memphis is playing Missouri. I highly recommend watching this game because both of those teams have real fun offenses. Vegas has set the over-under on this game at 74. This is the only time you will see a southeastern I can't even do it. I can't do it. This is the one time you will see a team from a grown man football conference score points in any sort of meaningful manner. So I highly recommend watching this game. That's at 4 o'clock on Saturday, just right in the middle of the day. Just, get the morning going, have some coffee, maybe watch some of the early slate. I usually don't look at the early slate because it's noon. Light. But 4 o'clock game should be really great. That's at Missouri. Memphis looking to get a win against a Power 5 conference opponent. So I really look forward to that game. And finally, the actual game that will steal my heart and yours. 7:30 p.m. on Fox from Pullman. Game days in town. It's Oregon Wazoo. This is the correct form of Pac-12 football. None of that nonsensical, we're going to run the ball 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Screw you, Stanford. Screw you, Washington. I want to see teams throw it 70 times. Let's go. Justin Herbert is awesome, and I want to watch him play all of the football games. Oregon coming off their big win against Washington, gets Washington's little brother, Washington State. I hope this is not a letdown game. This should be really great, but tune in 7:30 on Saturday. That's on Fox. Highly recommend watching that game. This has been your Pac-12 early evening report. You should watch those games and absolutely do not watch any South. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Don't watch other football leagues. Just watch the Pac-12. By the way, it's going to be Chalk Week. It's not Blood Week. It's Chalk Week in the Mountain West. Shh, don't watch the Mountain West now. Next week. Buckle up. Bye.
Thanks, AJ. Once again, you guys live just down the road, so if you need some of these, just stop by. Happy to give you a hand. Our games are not West Coast, and we even have a couple that are. Well, we have one that's in that conference that AJ seems to be having some difficulties with. But we're not going to start there. We're going to start actually with I think our toughest game of the week is at noon on Saturday. This is when number 6 Michigan visits number 24 Michigan State. Michigan is favored by a touchdown. And I don't think it's nearly that simple. Carla, what do you think?
No, well, it could have been,
it could have been, yes.
Had Michigan State not, done the impossible for the second year in a row and beat Penn State, which I'm still quite angry about. So I'll start with that game first because that was the game that, I was watching. I had that game on my iPad because I was like, Penn State's going to pull this out. So I was watching other stuff because Oregon and Washington were in overtime at that point. And so I was watching the overtime game while I was I had the Penn State game on mute. And then I was watching Michigan State drive down the field. And I'm like, oh, they're going to stop them. Oh, they're going to stop them. Oh, they're going to stop them.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. Everything's fine. No, everything was not fine. What we saw on Saturday from Michigan State was something that we don't see from Mark D'Antonio all that often. And that was him playing high roller. He's usually the guy that plays things really safe. He plays them conservative. I mean, he's a Big Ten coach, and they're
trustable. I mean, it is the current incarnation of trustable ball. But Tressel once in a while would do something crazy, and D'Antonio's done that. I mean, the fake field goal against Notre Dame a few years ago. There are other examples. It does not happen often, but. Yeah,
but it happened. But it happened twice in Beaver Stadium on Saturday. He went for the fake punt and then the fake field goal. and then, played, at the end of the game when everyone was like thinking that they were going to just center the ball to tie the game. And, they found the end route around and touchdown. And that's all she wrote. That was the end of the game. So that's a side we don't see of him very often, but it worked in that situation, and it worked last year as well against Penn State. So maybe it's just the Penn State thing. I don't know, because they hang tight in those games. The defense played pretty well, and my question, as I'm thinking, was going through watching snippets and excerpts from that game, because I wasn't paying that close of attention to it, as I was to what was happening out on the West Coast, because I was intrigued by that game. Was Michigan State gave up a ton of yards, and I'm questioning how much of that win was Michigan State executing and Penn State not taking advantage of the situations that they had. If you go back and you look at the Penn State drive charts, they had 6 3-and-outs. They had a turnover on downs, a missed field goal, and 2 fumbles. That is not a recipe to win a football game. No. And I know that James Franklin is under a ton of heat right now because of the way that some of those decisions were made, and the fact that the team just flat out didn't look prepared to play Michigan State in a lot of different areas of that game. So how much of that was Michigan State playing really, really well, and how much of that was Penn State playing really poorly? It's probably an even split down the middle. So I'm cautioning how good Michigan State looked in that game, because I do think, and Michigan State looked good in that game, and I'm not trying to take that away from them, but I do think that there was a piece of that was just Penn State was just flat out not ready to play that game, and that's inexcusable coming off of a bye week. Sorry, that's the fan of me speaking. But Brian Lewerke, who's been there forever, did what he needed to do. He won that game when he had to. And he saw the throw and executed that perfectly. So that's a huge win. Michigan State has been nothing but inconsistent the last 3 years, though, which is why this game is really intriguing, because they just went out and won a huge game, and now they have to play a team that is now obviously ranked higher, a team that dominated Wisconsin at home, which neither of us saw coming. Nope. They broke Michigan broke that game open in the fourth quarter. Again, Wisconsin did not play well in that game. 2 turnovers, including that pick six, when that pick six really turned the tide of that game. Yep. Because that was really kind of the deal breaker for Wisconsin. Once that went in, as soon as I saw that, I knew that game was over. I mean, really, it was a beautiful pick. But that game was over. Shea Patterson was the Shea Patterson that Michigan thought they were getting all along. And it's the first time we've seen that from him this season. And the Michigan defense played outstanding. And I hate to say that holding Jonathan Taylor to 100 yards is a win, but it's Jonathan Taylor. It's a win.
Yeah, it is.
So, and the fact that they were able to just kind of keep Hornibrook at bay, and, it was really, really good. Can Michigan do that 2 weeks in a row? Can Lewerke figure out this Michigan defense? I still think Michigan is the better team here. We still have not seen any consistency from Michigan State. Michigan looks really, really good right now. I'm going to give it's going to be a close game. It's a rivalry game. Throw everything out the window. I think Michigan wins the game. I think it's going to be real close.
Okay.
Real close.
Okay. We've talked about Michigan a lot on the show this year, and starting with week 1 against the game against Notre Dame. And most of what we've had to say has not been especially kind. Especially a couple of weeks ago, we both spent a lot of time sort of ripping on Michigan's offense. So it's worth noting what has happened in the last 2 weeks, and that is 80 points total against the Maryland and Wisconsin, more than 400 total yards against Wisconsin alone. Michigan's defense has met expectations, I think. It did. You mentioned the pick six, and they gave up 21 points to Maryland. I don't know how significant that is. I don't really know how good Maryland is. So, just in time. So you got this improvement, right? And things are looking good in Ann Arbor. But just in time for the Wolverines to right the ship and get things moving and towards the inevitable Big Ten East showdown in Columbus at the end of November, they got to go play Sparty. Mm-hmm. They got to do that at Sparty. And I've mentioned this as well. If you guys have been paying attention to what I say this season, you've heard me say that I am as worried about Ohio State's trip to East Lansing as I am about any other game on the schedule. And it doesn't matter so much about what Michigan State has done up to this point. The win against Penn State, I think it did have something to do with what Penn State failed to do, as well as what Michigan State did. But Michigan State's getting better.
Yeah.
And I don't care what the record says. They're that is potentially a good team. They're especially good, historically good, against Jamie Harbaugh, who's managed to beat Sparty only once so far. Since he came home to Ann Arbor. If I'm a Michigan fan, I am nervous as hell about this game. Of course, I am not a Michigan fan, and it's tempting to troll Harbaugh and pick him to lose yet another rivalry game. My gut says that he's going to win this, and it's going to be stupid close. Because I don't know. Maybe you can. Maybe Michigan State can turn it on and pull something out again for the second week in a row, and continue this streak that Mark D'Antonio seems to have against Harbaugh. But I think Michigan is a tight one here.
I was going to say, I wish I would have looked up when was the last time that Michigan State beat two conference opponents in consecutive weeks. Because I think it's been a while, and my memory feels like it's been a while because we saw them last year lose a game, win a game, lose a game, win a game, almost the entire season. And that's the reason why I think Michigan's going to win this game, because Sparty was so up to go play Penn State, and they won the damn football game, and can they be up 2 weeks in a row? We haven't seen that yet. So I
think for this game they can. I don't know if that's enough. Michigan State's defense is legit. You always throw up the caveat about this is a rivalry game and anything can happen, and Sparty's at home. But the trajectory, even if they're both trending up, I think Michigan's trending up at a better pace. So maybe that's the difference. This one is interesting as hell. Number 16 NC State at number 3 Clemson. Clemson is favored by 17, which is just a dumb number. That makes no sense to me. Because I would be stunned if Clemson were to win by 2 touchdowns here. What do you think?
Hi, Wolfpack. We haven't talked about you all season.
Hello. Welcome to the Carla and Crappy Show.
Welcome. Yeah, no, we've talked about all the rest of these teams at least once. And NC State is very quietly, in the top 20 in the country. 5-0, it's kind of odd that they've kind of flown under the radar as a 5-0 team. But then you go and look and see who they've played, and you go, oh, that makes sense. That's why. Yeah, their 2 biggest wins of the year are over Boston College and Virginia. It's okay. Decent wins.
The biggest game of the year was against West Virginia, which is not played.
Right.
That would have been the one.
Yeah, that would have been the one. And that would have been an interesting measuring stick to kind of see, what they're doing. Although who knows what West Virginia is going to do this week after all that. So I told you Ames is a tough place to play.
Yes.
So NC State very quietly 5-0. They have Ryan Finley on offense is a legit quarterback. He's leading the ACC in just about every single passing category at this point. He's a legit NFL prospect. Here's the thing, though. He has not faced anywhere close to the defense he's going to face on Saturday against Clemson. You got Clemson, which is one of the top defenses in the country. And even though NC State is really, really good against the run, they've been really, really good against the run against teams that are arguably inferior against running the football. Yeah. So statistically, they're fantastic, but what do those numbers actually mean? I don't know. Clemson is the number 4 rush offense in the country. Right. So we're going to find out whether this NC State rush defense has any meat to it, and whether this is a legit thing. If they are able to slow down the run, then hello, Trevor Lawrence. Welcome to the ACC. let's see if this whole quarterback thing has proven the way that Dabo thinks it was going to. With the whole concept of now that they've lost Kelly Bryant. Kelly Bryant, I still think you should go to Nebraska. Although I guess he did a visit to North Carolina, which is also an interesting place for him to land. But we'll talk about that later.
Don't have to travel as much. Yeah.
True. So NC State hasn't been tested. They're going up against a really, really good offense. They might be able to slow down Clemson's run game, which has been a pleasant surprise this year. Yep. We didn't really think that the run game was going to be much of anything, but I mean, they're running the ball really well. Mm-hmm. If they can slow down the run, it's going to come down to the arm of Trevor Lawrence. Is he ready to take this kind of stage? They're playing at home. I think Clemson wins this game. I think the line is ridiculous. I think 17 is silly. I think it might be 10. But okay. I think it'll be a little bit closer than what the line says. But mm-hmm. I don't know. Clemson's played better competition. They seem to be better battle tested. I like their run pass split. Their defense is fantastic. And they're playing at home. That all says Clemson wins mm-hmm. to me. However, this would also be a prime spot for a Clemsoning.
Yes.
So that's my only caution here is that this is a prime candidate for a Clemsoning situation. But barring that, Clemson wins.
Yeah. The what if here is so interesting. And that's what this one is really intriguing. I mean, you think about the matchups, and you've gone through this stuff. I think Clemson has emphasized rushing game. Because they're able to, but it also, takes the pressure off of a freshman quarterback, and that's never a bad thing.
Right.
But then, we get to find out about NC State's rush defense, which right now is the 13th best rush defense in the country, according to yards given up per game. You mentioned Finley. He's not a rookie. He's been there. He's like a 12th year senior.
Feels like it.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those guys that we seem to land on once every week. Their passing game is kind of a dink and dunk sort of thing. It's tempo and short passes. It's let's go, and that is the right kind of offense to run against, especially a defensive line like Clemson's. If you want to negate a pass rush, you have an experienced quarterback who unloads the ball quickly, right?
Yep. Bubble screens and swings.
Yeah, I mean that's and why not? If you want to relieve that pressure, get rid of the ball and get it out on the wings and let those guys go. The fact that this is that it's at Clemson. I don't think there's any question that Clemson is the more talented team. Clemson is in a lot of respects the more experienced team. They've been in higher stakes situations than NC State. Ryan Finley's 15 years in college aside. But you do think about Clemsoning, and then you do, of course, you think about if this was a betting show. I would point out once again that I'm absolutely taking NC State in the points because 17 is dumb. That's not happening. I think it'll be a tight game, and I think Clemson. I think Clemson will win primarily because they're used to big matchups like this. They're used to pressure situations. But man, I would not be surprised at all to see NC State with a shot to win this at the end. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would be a little surprised. If the Wolfpack were to pull this out. I could see that happening. But my pick is going to be Clemson. And then we have the second favorite college football team of everybody in Columbus, Ohio, hosting Mississippi State. This is number 22 Mississippi State at number 5 LSU. Yeah. LSU favored by 6.5 points. The sports editor that I work with walked by my desk this afternoon and said, "We'll see you in the college football playoff," because he's an LSU guy. and he's obviously a little excited. And we share the same kind of ups and downs and angst and oh my God, how this is never going to work. But this is part of a stretch of games, including one coming up here very shortly, for where we find out for sure what LSU is all about. So, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is interesting because, again, we were wrong about everything last week. So LSU's defense, and it was really interesting because I went back and read, we were just talking about how bad Jake Fromm looked in that game.
Yeah.
And I was trying to figure out, like, why did that happen? Because we've never seen Jake Fromm look like that before. And his comment to the Associated Press writer out of that game was the fact that LSU did an amazing job of disguising its defensive coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And Fromm's statement was that they were throwing coverages and lineups that he had not seen on tape. And that was how, this LSU defense was able to slow down that. I mean, Fromm looked really bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much of that was just his accuracy was just off. That happens with quarterbacks. You have off days. Whether how much of that was just he had an off day and how much of that was LSU's defense. It forced Georgia into 4 turnovers, and that's how you win a football game.
Yep.
Right? Is you force turnovers. Here's the interesting thing, though. The LSU defense is not as good statistically as Kentucky or Florida's, which are the 2 losses that Mississippi State has. So it's really interesting. So this is not, even though LSU's defense played really, really well last week and essentially won them that football game by slowing down that Georgia offense, they're still not statistically as good as the 2 teams that have managed to beat Mississippi State. Right. So it's another good defense, but it's not the worst defense. The challenge with Mississippi State is the fact that Nick Fitzgerald makes a much better fullback than a quarterback.
Right.
And that's what happened last week. That's how they beat Auburn. Finally they let
Tebow in here somewhere. Can we call it Tebowing?
Tebowing. Well,
I know what Tebowing is the thing, but there's got to be another Tebow verb in here because that's what I thought of.
Well, now it's got to be Fitzgeralding because he's officially passed Tebow in the game. He rushed for 195 yards, which is just insane for a quarterback. His passing, like, non-existent in the game against Auburn. And to be quite frank, in the 2 losses, when in the Florida game, Nick Fitzgerald only had less than 100 yards passing in that game. And that's why Mississippi State lost those 2 games, is because they were trying to keep Fitzgerald in the pocket, trying to make him pass more. And that's just not who he is. Right. He's a dual threat quarterback by every stretch of the imagination, more so running than.
But sort of a 1.5 threat quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he just doesn't really have that arm. But the Mississippi State defense is playing really well. I mean, they're the number 8 total defense in the country. And so now you have this LSU team and Joe Burrow, which did a great job last week against that Georgia defense, facing another tough
best game of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. He looked fantastic. And now he's going up against a tougher defense than Georgia's. While Mississippi State has figured out just let Fitzgerald run the ball, can LSU stop it? This game is going to be a heck of a lot closer. And what it tells me is, again, LSU's inconsistency, right? None of these teams in the SEC, they're beating up on each other because nobody can play consistently. If I'm an LSU fan, I am nervous as heck about this game, even though I'm playing at home, because you just made a statement. You're back up in the top 5 in the country. You're sitting in prime playoff position. And what happened the last time? They lost to Florida, right? So here's the difference. They're playing at home.
Yeah.
I think that makes a difference, and it's a night game, which is what we wanted last week, but it turned out it didn't matter. Yes. They're playing at home. They don't have to go to those damn cowbells, which might be the difference in the game. The atmosphere really might be the difference in this game. I think LSU is able to pull this out at home, but man, this is going to be a really close game, and it wouldn't stun me, like you just said with NC State. It would not stun me if Mississippi State had a chance to win this game on the last possession. But yeah, I think the Tigers pull this out, but it's way too close for comfort.
Okay. Obviously, you talked about the consistency for LSU, and here's the recap. Right, here's the recap. Week 1 for LSU, beat Miami, signature win. Right. Wait, Miami's not that good. Week 3, there's a signature win. Hey, they won at Auburn. Auburn kind of sucks. So that's not working. Week 6, hey, there's a signature road on the win against Florida, except you actually have to win those football games for it to be a signature win. And then week 7, when the second favorite, as I mentioned before, the second favorite college team of everyone in Columbus was certainly not going to beat Georgia, and especially if you're listening to anyone who has opinions on this show, except that they did. So
right.
There's your signature win, right? And maybe until week 9, but that's something else that we'll probably talk about that one too when that one's coming up. But that's so. If we don't want to get ahead of ourselves, and if the Tigers don't get ahead of themselves this weekend, I think just the steps that the team has taken, I think they should win this game, which would be a sweep of the state of Mississippi. I think there's like a trophy if you win the Mississippi State Championship. Maybe, I'm not sure.
There should be.
There should be. Again, tight game. This line is more reasonable, obviously at 6.5, but and the fact that it's a night game is gonna make a big difference. But so I think LSU wins here, and then we can start thinking about that game they have again at home the following weekend. Okay, boys and girls, you can watch the Carla and Crappy Show for the duration of the college football season, which is getting down to the good stuff, by searching Carla and Crappy Show on YouTube or Facebook. If you prefer to have Carla and Crappy in your skull, you'll find the podcast version at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, and TuneIn, as well as some occasional reminders on your favorite social channels. If you like the show, please rate and review. If you don't, mind your own damn business. Carla, do you have any final thoughts?
So the aforementioned, but not named, Crimson Tide pays a visit to just east of here in Knoxville on Saturday. And the fans of Tennessee are, a little bit excited about this after finally, they beat Auburn.
Why would they be excited about that?
Well, because they just beat Auburn, so they're good again. And so, because that's Tennessee fan logic.
I know, that's college football logic, and I understand.
True. But then I found out that Butch Davis is going to be in the box calling the game on a broadcast, which means that, Alabama is going to score like 72 points on Tennessee, knowing that. Take the over.
Did that.
He doesn't. Apparently, he's going to be up there. He's going to do like color analysis for. I didn't read for who, but yeah, he's going to do color for that game because he has a connection to both teams. That's a recipe for disaster for the Vols. It's going to get ugly real quick. Take the over on Alabama alone.
And I don't know what the over is, but I imagine.
Doesn't matter.
I imagine that line is appropriately dumb in favor of the Crimson Tide.
Sorry, Tennessee.
Sorry, Rocky Toppers. Guys, you can look for me on television, national TV, Ohio State, and at Purdue, 7:30 on Saturday. I'll be the one wearing scarlet. I'm not sure where we're sitting actually, but
is it a blackout?
I don't know that for sure. I assume that we're gonna get, the Ohio State travels. We're gonna get all that stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised. But again, I'll be wearing scarlet. Look for the beard,
gotcha.
and I'll wave and stuff.
Okay.
Guys, thank you very much for watching. We appreciate your patronage, and we hope you enjoy the show. Carla, thank you very much.
Thanks as always. Enjoy West Lafayette.
I'm going to enjoy West Lafayette. Guys, you enjoyed college football this weekend, and we will see you back here next week.